Hi, Cornita.
Hi, Sophia.
Thank you for joining me. And I know we've got a really important subject today, which is quite close to your heart, looking at surviving and coming through the other side of domestic violence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So tell me about your involvement in the organisation, and how does it help women? Is it just for women, or is it women and men that go through domestic violence? How does your organisation help?
Well, there is obviously both go through domestic abuse, but the organization that I help, only females they do.
Okay.
And I go in and I just do workshops about hand massage or feet massage or facials. And it's just to interact with the ladies and just kind of make them think about life differently and not just about their situation.
So
Um,
in what way think about life differently? What do you mean?
like obviously they're very vulnerable. Most of them are not living at home. They've moved out, but they're in a refuge where obviously no one's allowed to go. So they've got young children. So it's just for them, for not them and the children, just for them to have time for themselves, to have self-care, look about themselves, how they can relax at home, how they can look about themselves without thinking about the children as well, and just being with other ladies and just having not to talk about their situation and try to turn it into a good what's the way in a good light. Like, you know what, I am going through this, but you know what, I have to look after myself. So I'm just basically showing them what to do. So basically, I'll have techniques. So I'll have like they'll have their own facial stuff, and we'll show them how to cleanse their skin, tone, exfoliation, mask, moisturize, and then they can go home and do it for themselves on a daily basis.
Okay, so it sounds like it's because women have gone through the trauma,
Hmm.
and in going through that trauma, in order for your survival, you kind of just focus on getting through to the next day, and what
Yeah,
gets lost is self-love and
yeah,
self-care.
yeah,
And it sounds like what you're doing is introducing that pampering, that
mm,
loving
yeah,
side, and helping women to realize that they are worthy of affection, are worthy of self-care, and worthy of love,
hmm,
and giving them that quality time
yes,
that might have
definitely,
been missed out while they were going through that
yeah.
trauma, isn't
Hmm.
it? How long have you been doing that?
Well, I started off initially being a befriending, where obviously one to one I'll be talking to someone, just listening to their story. Not necessarily their story, but just listening to their everyday life. I will do that like once, twice a week. I'll be dedicated one person that I speak to. And then obviously lockdown came in, and I had some personal problems, so I stepped away from it. And then I've
Mhm.
just gone back recently to offer the self-care part of it. It's about on and off for about 3 years.
Okay, okay, so that's a long time. I
Mm.
know that when we were going through the lockdowns, there was an increase in home life abuses and domestic violence, and that kind of trauma, wasn't it? It was like people who had that respite of the spouse being at work,
Mhm.
that was taken away in essence, or that respite of not being around the person all the time, and there was a lot of heated tension. So we saw an increase in marriages breaking up, relationships breaking up, and of course, and violence. So it was a very tricky time for everybody. The stress levels are high, and
Yeah,
sometimes that can be taken out on your nearest and dearest. And if there's
yeah.
already an abusive relationship, it can be heightened. So it seems
Exactly.
like, did they notice an increase as well in the refuge?
They noticed an increase. So they was kind of ongoing through lockdown, and they was their workload kind of doubled.
Wow.
Um, because obviously it was just again, obviously I always say lockdown kind of was a make or break for everybody.
Yes.
You either made it or you
Mhm.
didn't. And again, it heightened a lot of the stuff that was happening anyway on a daily basis.
Mhm.
So therefore, people who had that escape, they never had escape anymore. So however they might be going for abuse 2 times a week, it kind of maybe ended up every day.
Right.
Just because they was, maybe working from home, seeing them all the time, and then obviously the stress of being confined in your own home when you didn't want to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, it increased a lot. Unfortunately, there were a lot of deaths as well. Um,
Right.
so
Yeah.
yeah. Mm.
I think we don't realize just how fragile the human body is. And, to be hit, a strong man hitting a weak female kind of
Mm.
thing can be a life and death situation. And we
Yeah.
just didn't realize that we are very fragile. And,
Mm.
people need to think before they take action. I mean, if there are people that are in similar situations now, what kind of advice can you give to women who are experiencing violence at home?
Um, because unfortunately I went through it years ago. And the organization has been around for years, but at the time I never knew about them. And the organization is called Weights. And there's obviously many more, but Weights is the um main one out there. Is
Mhm.
don't sit in silence. Like, tell someone, if it's a family member, a friend. Don't feel that there's no one else you can talk to, and there is other people going through it, and you have to go to who can help you to
Mhm.
get out your situation. So yeah, don't sit in silence, because that's what you're thinking you're doing it to help yourself, but you're actually hindering yourself when you're doing that.
Yeah. I suppose for a lot of people, there's that embarrassment, the shame, of thinking that you can be vulnerable. We don't want to think that we're vulnerable, so it
Mm.
can be that embarrassment. It can be about, there's children involved, or partners can be threatening. It can
Mm.
be a difficult move to make the decision to go. Sometimes
Yeah.
it could feel like it's easier to stay in the
Mm.
trauma because you
Yeah.
know that trauma than it
Yeah.
is to leave, just in
Yeah.
case that partner follows, or the violence increases, or do you know what I mean? So I can imagine it can be really, really scary, a
Yeah.
scary time for women. Do you
It
know?
is. And I think as well, it's because a lot of females realize that the time they decide to go,
Mhm.
unfortunately, it is worse, because the perpetrators realize now that you've had enough and you go in. So that's why sometimes it is. But you know what? If it's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, there has to be a time where you have to go. So,
Yeah,
if it means you have to go, and have to face that, like I said, there is other people at the end of it who can help you to do that, and to can do it in a safe way, that they can put you somewhere safe in the process when you're doing that.
yeah. And I suppose that's the key, really, isn't it? Is knowing that you are not alone, and there
Mm.
are resources to give you the support that's needed. And
Yeah.
I think that can be the scary part, because people can think, well, where do they go to? If
Mm.
you go to, say, a family member, they might know where that family member is and cause problems to that family member. So sometimes it could be useful to know that there's a resource just while you get your self-esteem and your energy back.
Mhm.
And I suppose with your massage, what you're helping to do is to get that self-esteem and that energy back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Give them that
yeah,
confidence, their confidence, and boost their self-esteem, because
yeah,
um, unfortunately, when you are going through domestic abuse, you are stripped of all those things: your confidence, your self-esteem, your self-worth. So it's just basically building them back up again.
yes. I
Knowing
suppose that's
that,
what happens. Perpetrators, what they will do is get you away from your friends and families. Why are you hanging around with that person? This person doesn't like me, or some other excuse to try and isolate you, isn't it? I mean, that's a key feature of a lot of narcissistic kind
it's
of
a, it's a,
behaviors.
it's their main keep focus, because obviously they know what they're doing, and other
Mm,
people who are the outsiders will know what they're doing if you keep them close.
yeah.
So they can't do what they're doing if you're around other people. So they've got to keep you away, make
Mm,
excuses, tell lies, whatever, to just have you and them.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
I suppose I always think that people sometimes don't understand why people stay, or
Mm.
or how a person becomes in that relationship in the first place. And I suppose what we need to realize is a perpetrator doesn't come up straight away being abusive. It
Okay.
can be a gradual nursing of that person, a gradual increase in the trauma, can
Yeah.
be pleasant and then violent, or angry or abusive. It's a gradual thing.
Yeah.
You don't come up and say, right, I'm going to do A, B,
I,
C.
I I always say they don't have it on their forehead when you meet them. Oh, I'm going to abuse you, or I'm a
Mm,
narcissist. That's not the case. They are the opposite.
Mm.
They're very friendly, they're very caring, they're there to listen to all your problems, so you're very open. But then what they do, they use all that against you afterwards. Once they get you, once they know that they've got you where they want to, they use that
Yes.
against you. So that's how they hold you, and then you feel dedicated to them because they've done so much nice things for you and they've been there for you, and they kind of throw that back at in your face. So you feel that, wow, I'll be grateful if I leave them now because of what they've done for me. But then this time, that's their plan all along.
Yes, yes, and sometimes I suppose there could be a history of it as well. So I know that with some more intense kind of violence and sexual assaults, there's registers that people go on
Yeah,
because it's, so that you can call and find out whether your partner is on those kind of registers as well. You can do some little checks. I always believe to speak with people, with men about their ex-partners or how they treat their mothers or how they treat, it's good to get those cues. There might be some red flags there if they talking really nasty about their ex-partners. That could be, there could be a reason behind that. That could be a red flag, that if they
oh
haven't got a good relationship with
yeah,
ex-partners.
yeah. And for me, I used to say, oh, if a guy's a mummy's boy, stay away.
Mm.
But you know what? If a guy doesn't talk good about his mother, um,
Mm.
that's a big red flag because
Yeah,
it means he doesn't have respect for women. So if he doesn't
yeah.
have respect for his own mother, it's definitely going to be very
Well, you
hard
don't
to
stand a
do.
chance, do you? Yeah.
Exactly. So those are the things that you should look out for. How he speaks about women in general, especially
Yes.
especially if he's got sisters.
Mm.
How he speaks about if he's got a daughter, even how does he speak
Mm.
about them? So these are the things that in the conversation you're thinking, okay, all right,
Mm.
don't get me wrong. I'm not saying every guy who doesn't have a relationship with his mom, they are bad. But
Yes.
most times, 9 out of 10, they are.
Yeah.
If they don't talk
Mm.
highly of their mother.
Yeah. So what you're really saying is just sometimes it's the warning signs, isn't it? It's things to
Yeah,
look
it's
out
red
for.
flag. Yeah,
Trust,
yeah,
trust your instincts and look out for those things. And if you
yeah.
feel uneasy or if they're disrespectful, and I think this is something of modern times as well. I mean, we've noticed. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the 80s where we were empresses and princesses and queens. That's how we were spoken about. And in more modern times now, do you know what I mean? People are using curse words as a norm, maybe due to the music or the era that we're in now. But I think that you're right. If people are speaking in a degrading way, this is definitely a warning sign.
Okay.
And I think even if they're speaking about other people, they're nice to you, but they're speaking about the other people, it's still a big warning sign.
Yeah,
And if there is that first abuse, that first incident, even though they might be very apologetic or whatever, it's still a big red flag, and that you shouldn't ignore, no
yeah.
matter what the situation.
Um, it's easy for them to say sorry, and you just say okay, no problem. And then a few weeks that come by, then the same thing happens again. Okay. You know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
like it's a vicious circle, and then before you know it, it's months and years, and then you know what? How many sorries can you say? So
Yes, yeah.
it's just knowing
Hmm.
the sign, but asking a lot of deep questions before you get involved. Ask a lot of questions. See them in environments with their family and friends.
Mm.
I think that's sometimes what we don't do. We don't be in the guys'
They're safe spaces, their
their own
family.
space. Yeah, like they're in yours, but you need
Mm.
to see them in their own to see how they act
Mm.
with their friends and with their family. That alone is
That can help.
yeah, that's a big
Mm.
that's a big help.
Mm.
Then obviously you're around their
Mm.
family and friends, you see how they talk about them, um,
Yes.
and how they talk to each other. So those are the things that I noticed a bit like later on when it was a bit kind of too late to see how
Yeah.
they operate with their own family. So
And I think it's very important about, you said, taking it slow as well and asking those questions. Sometimes people think they don't want to scare people off, think they're going to be too serious or kind of know that kind of fearful, and it gets very intimate and very personal before you have those big questions. But if you are in the position where you can't ask those serious questions, then you've got to question what you're doing, really, as well, isn't it?
Well,
It's not
yeah,
just about love.
yeah, and if you are asking the questions and they are very closed and they're not giving you the answers, it's like a yes or no. Okay,
Mm,
that again is a red flag. Like, why can't you be open about you? You can see that you're being open to them, but they're not being open to you. That alone is
yeah,
again is a red flag.
yes,
And if they have children, why are you not seeing your children as regular as you should?
right.
Um, so if why you not got a relationship with your baby mother? Yes,
Mm,
most men are gonna slag off their baby mother because they had a bad
mm,
relationship. But
mm,
obviously, I always said there's two sides to every story. If
yes.
you're not seeing your children, there's got to be a reason for it. There's not just because,
Mm,
oh, she's this, she's that. There's more like
mm,
this to it. So
mm,
again, it's just those things, and then if that's the case, they're not seeing their children. So you're not really, that means you're not having a relationship with a baby mother. Then
mm,
it necessarily again that's red flag. And it's just there's so many things that once you're in it, you maybe not thinking
mm,
it's a red flag. Is that all? It's so easy for outside to say something, but when you're obviously been there, done it, it's something that you can give back to say to someone.
mm,
These are the things that you need to be asking these questions on the first two dates, and if they're not, open with you back, then kind
mm.
of just knock it on the head because they've clearly got something to hide.
Sure. And I suppose, you're saying about the aspects of keeping your friends close and respecting them because they're seeing things from the outside. They might pick up things that your rose tinted glasses won't
Yeah.
pick up. So it's important to have your friend close and to
All right. Yeah.
have a group of friends that you can trust that
Yeah.
has your best interests at heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because obviously, yeah. All the things I've said I went through all that, and it's only when I was out of it I went, oh my god, I didn't see that. I didn't see that. I didn't realize
Mm,
he was doing that.
yeah.
Trying to make excuses for my friends, saying, oh, they're this, they're that, they're jealous, da, da, da. And I'm like, jealous of what? You know what I mean?
Mm, mm,
So yeah, it was just little things, and it was just you're thinking to yourself, oh, but he cares. He just wants to spend a lot of time with me. Oh,
mm,
no, it's eating what he was doing. So he had
yeah.
to have people out the way to do what he needs to do.
Right. Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. And I know you've got a book out.
Yes, so the book is Surviving Queens Anthology. Um, it's been released now 2 years.
Mhm,
There's 9 of us in the book. Um,
mm,
and it's literally just telling us a chapter. I say it's not a story; it's a chapter of our story in the
yeah.
book. Basically, mine was just about my relationship with him,
Mhm,
um, what I went through, how it made me feel, but how I came at the end of it. Like I always says, we always when you go through the tunnel, it's dark and you don't know when it's going to be light.
mhm,
I can say there was light at the end of the tunnel, and
mm,
I'm not in it. Um, but my journey has made me who the person I am today.
mhm. I think it's excellent that there's a group of women that put their stories down, and I like the fact that there are this kind of solutions, and it is giving hope because
Yes,
I think when you're in that kind of situation, it can feel hopeless.
yes,
And so to know that there's resources there, there's other people that's gone through that kind of support network, that understanding can be very hopeful. And you're right, if you're going through hell, just keep on going because there's light at the other end of it.
there
Do you know what
is.
I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And there is times where you feel, oh my God, like, am I really going through this? And that time feels dark, and it feels there's no one going to help you, because I was very silent. I didn't say anything to anyone.
Mm,
People had their ideas, but I was just backing it off, like, no. But I wanted to deal with it my way. I didn't want to get anyone involved, but it was the wrong thing to do. I should have
mm.
spoken up.
So what stopped you from speaking out? What?
I think because everybody looks at me as a strong person. Oh, that
Mm,
can never happen to Cornita. And I was in denial. I was like, how can this happen to me? How can I allow this to happen to me? So for me to actually go and say to my cousins, who I'm very close with, and I'm
mhm,
like, I'm going through this. And obviously I was
mhm.
19, so I'm one of the older cousins. Like my cousins
Okay.
they were younger than me. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I couldn't speak to my mom about it. Couldn't speak to my auntie, my grandma. I just felt I knew that if I did speak to them, the
Mhm.
repercussions would have been nice. And
So Were you worried that they would respond and that it would be a big argument, or they would go to
Yeah,
him?
big argument. People might be dead. If I be honest, it would be not nice, and that's why it took me like a year and a half to even say anything after. So even when I finished, I still didn't say anything. And people was like wondering why I didn't want to go certain places because I knew you were going to be there, and they're like, "Well, you finished," but no one kind of really knew the reasons why we finished. They just thought, "Okay, we just partied," but
They
obviously,
didn't know how bad it was. They didn't know how serious it was. They just thought it was the end of a relationship. That was it. And even after such a long time, you didn't feel in yourself that you could discuss the
no,
trauma.
I felt I thought he's finished with. I'm out of it, so they didn't
Okay.
need to know. And then I thought, but then at the same time, he's walking around thinking that he's got away with it, kind of thing.
Right. Right.
And because some people were still talking to him, and then some who was a bit dubious anyway about what's going on, they was like, I don't like him. There's something about him. I didn't like him. So when I did announce what went on, my family was like, I knew it. I knew something was going on. You was going on. There was nothing. Da, da, da. And I went, yeah. But I had to do it because I was protecting him, basically, and that was the wrong thing to do.
Oh, wow.
I was protecting him, even though he
Well,
might
that's what
protect me.
happened. Yeah, that's what
Because
happened.
I knew the repercussions. I knew that,
Yeah.
and I liked his family. You know what I mean? Apart from I didn't like him, I liked his family, so I didn't want to have that on my conscience.
Yeah.
So,
Quite deep, that statement, though, isn't it, really? Because it's a little bit of Stockholm syndrome there, isn't it? It's that aspect of you're going through that trauma and it's painful and it's hurting you, but there was still a part of you. Was it you still loved him, or is it just like, you didn't want harm to come to him, but you were still protecting him, even though he was your perpetrator? He treated you so bad, but you still, you still looked out for him.
yeah, I just think, it was. I didn't want the repercussions, and like I said, I like his family. I
Yeah.
still speak to one of his sisters now. You know what I mean? I don't even think she's kind of fully aware of what's happened. Like she sees me post and things, but I don't think she realized I'm talking about her brother.
Wow.
But you know what I mean? But I just
Well, I
thought,
suppose it's the same way where people can play those different roles. So as a boyfriend, that partner, he's a bad person, a bad partner. But then maybe as a brother and a son and a friend, then he can shine, and people have a different impression of him. They see a different side than what you see. I think people can have that quite a lot, where they might have somebody who they could be good friends with, but then when they start dating, they don't like them. Do you know what I mean? They're better as friends than they are as a partner. I mean that can happen, can't it? Really. So it's not just because people don't see what's happening in your house and outside. They could, it's a whole total different story than what's happening inside, and that's a very common occurrence. Really, that's why people don't know that violence is going on. So thank you so much for that. I mean, you spoke about your book, and where can we find a copy? Want a copy of the book? Where do we find that?
you can get it on Amazon, but you can also order it for myself directly.
Okay.
And then obviously I can send it out to you. I can post it out to you.
Do you have a WhatsApp number or
Yeah,
Facebook or?
my number is 07731 839 283.
Okay.
And you can email me if you want to do it that way. You can email me on info@cornitataylorhw.org.uk, and that's Cornita CORNITA TAYLOR.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing. And I think your message can help a lot of people to realize that they're not alone. And the message is in the book. Another excellent resource that women can tap into, it, or anybody, because domestic violence can go both ways, can tap into and just realize that there's hope at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So thank you very much, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
Definitely. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. Take care.